Hey friends and family, it's James with Crawlers and Customs. Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to talk about how the Drift Art 2.6 EX drives. So we built this over the last few weeks. In the last video we talked about the chassis setup and body, and now we're going to talk about our electronics and our driving impressions, so stay tuned. Alright, so we've been driving this car now last 2 weeks, and we've put about 3 to 4 hours of drive time on it. So let's talk about our final setup on this Drift Art 2.6 EX. So there are a couple things I like, and then there's one thing I'm going to change, but this is a Drift Art 2.6 EX with the Driftholics D1 gyro and then a 3500 kV brushless censored motor. That's probably the only place that I'm going to change. I'm going to go up to a 5000 kV just because I feel like a lot of the time when I was driving on our track that I was near or at 100% throttle, and I just didn't have the room or maybe the fidelity that I wanted. So I'd rather be at full throttle part of the time, you know, mid-throttle, low throttle, but I was up near the end of the throttle range most of the time driving this just for my driving style in the track. In any case, it's all soldered up here, and we've got plenty of room in the center of the chassis. So I found these Ovonic 50C 450 mAh 2S Lipo Packs that already come with the JST lead, and they basically just slide in the chassis. And you can see how well they fit in this car. And so this is the wider, keep in mind this is the wider Tamiya with the Fugu Garage wide body kit. This battery would likely not fit if you were running a narrower setup or a 128 scale body. This is a 124, so keep that in mind. Also, I made a little, you can see a little receiver box here, just because these micro receivers don't come with a case, and they have exposed pins on the back side. And if you know anything about carbon fiber, you know that it is conductive, so I didn't want to short that out, and I thought this was just a little bit better way to finish off the chassis. So a couple other little things as far as adjustments go. I'm running the full toe-in the rear and some pretty square profile tires with very little camber. That's because I'm trying to get more speed or drive out of the corners to keep up with some of the guys that are driving a little bit faster than I am. As far as the setup goes, you definitely want to pay attention to symmetry. So the caster, camber, steering links, they all need to be exactly the same length to keep the car balanced. And using a compass helps to achieve that, even beyond maybe what a digital caliper might be able to help you with. And one of the guys showed me that you can basically put the compass points inside those ball ends and get a really accurate sort of relative reading. So you can set it to one side and then compare it to the other. So you want to do that across all points to make sure that the car is set up symmetrically. From the owner's manual, I went with one set stiffer springs in the front and rear, and I think that's probably because this hard body with the wide fenders is a little bit heavier than maybe a Lexan body would be. I also made a 3D printed front body mount. The rear just sort of sits on this little printed mount I made as well, so that's contoured to fit the shape of these shoulders here. And obviously we've got some body work left to do. We're going to paint this, put in our glass, our rear valence, exhaust, and lenses and so on. But you can see how the body sits and works. It snaps on there really well. And we've probably got, I don't know, maybe 3 millimeters of ride height. But this chassis is very reactive to bumps, and you're going to see in the driving footage coming up, you're going to see some long lines and some quick edits showing this car in action, but it's really easy to drive. So let's move on now to the driving impressions. All right, so how does the Drift Art 2.6 EX drive? Well, my background is RC. I've been doing it pretty much my whole life, and I've raced every form you can possibly name, boats, I've pilot planes, I've raced on-road and off-road, nitro and electric, you name it, I've done it. And I even have a 110 scale drift car. I was worried that this wasn't going to drive with the same sort of fidelity or realism that the 110 scale drives with, but I'm super impressed. This can hold extreme angles. It's really easy to drive. I basically jumped on the track, and within 3 or 5 laps, it felt like I knew what I was doing. So you'll see that in the video coming up. So really easy to drive, but setup is super important. I quickly built it and didn't pay a lot of attention to the lengths, thinking I would tweak them at the track, but that's just not possible. A small change here or there makes a big difference. Things like ride height, spring rates, those are going to be really important. So you can see that this is balanced pretty well, and that I've tuned the track width and wheelbase specifically for this body. So we're getting all the angle, and we're still getting full suspension articulation. And you can see just how much angle it has. And actually, let's go back into the setup here a little bit. I wanted to show the steering off some. So there are a couple of mechanical stops. You can see one there and one there. And the idea is that this has so much steering throw that if you go beyond a certain point, the steering will become locked out. And so you can see here, I'm just going to move it with my thumb, but the steering never becomes locked out, and you get a really extreme angle, which will allow you to get those that sideways control that you need at the track. So you can see just how tweaked that front end will go. You can basically back it into a quarter and still drive out of it. I think I'm going to reduce the toe out a little bit here. You can see it's a little bit exaggerated, so I still have some adjustments to do, but it's super drivable the way it is. I did add a little bit of brass weight in the rear to compensate for this large single magnet that I'm running on the nose that keys into the magnet here on the body. Part of that is when you're sliding sideways, if you add weight, you're increasing the momentum, but you're also increasing the mechanical friction between the chassis, tires, and the track. So I was over-rotating slightly, so I added some weight to the rear to increase that friction and make the car a little bit more balanced through the corner. There can always be adjustments to improve, but this car is, you'll see in the video, 95% there. All right, so stick around. The rest of the video is going to be the track with a few other cars and mostly shots of this 2.6 EX. All right, thanks for tuning in.
Kid is so wavy.
All right, let me know what you guys thought. This thing is a lot of fun to drive. I'm enjoying the change of pace compared to working on the F450s or crawlers. So we drift these here in South Florida every Sunday night at a local track. So if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll bring you more content soon. Have a good night.